I measured my life in quiet routines, sealing rare manuscripts, tracking humidity, walking to my car with my keys wedged between my fingers like claws. Quiet meant I could forget I'd changed my name and crossed 3 state lines to become Talia Marrow. In Grey Haven, nobody asked questions if you kept your head down. On the last Friday of October, the university parking garage asked them for me. I was heading for my sedan when footsteps hammered the level above. Fast, ragged. A door slammed. Someone swore in a language I didn't recognize. Then came the unmistakable scrape of metal against concrete. I stopped beside a pillar, rainwater dripping from my hair. I should have gotten in the car and driven straight into the nearest bright, crowded street. Instead I waited because my curiosity had always been a bad guardian. A man stepped into view, half swallowed by shadows. Black coat, dark suit underneath. One hand pressed to his ribs, blood seeping through his fingers. He held himself too steady for an injured stranger, like pain was just another thing he refused to show. His eyes found mine, pale, almost silver. "Don't scream," he said. The words landed with the certainty of a loaded gun. My throat tightened but no sound came. Anger flared at my own obedience. Voices echoed from the stairwell. "Will. Blows. Hunting." The man's gaze flicked toward the ramp and back, quick as a blade. "Are you alone?" he asked. "Yes," I lied because the truth, no one would come looking, felt like weakness. He moved closer, a controlled limp. "Keys?" "No," I tightened my fist around them. The stairwell door banged open. "Lower levels," a voice shouted. "He's bleeding, move." The injured man reached me in 2 steps and caught my wrist. Firm, warm, unshaking. He didn't twist, didn't hurt me, yet the hold said he could. "You can fight me," he murmured. "Or you can live." He pulled me to my car, using his body to block the open lanes. I fumbled at the lock. The beep sounded too loud. He slid into the passenger seat without asking. Blood marked the leather like a signature. "Drive," he said. Headlights swept into the aisle behind us. Black SUV, tinted windows, wrong for campus. My hands shook as I started the engine. "Now," he added softer, and the softness scared me more than the command. Gunned it. Tires shrieked on damp concrete as we climbed the spiral ramp. The SUV followed, steady and certain. The man beside me reached inside his coat and drew a pistol, holding it low against his thigh. The motion was clean, practiced. Someone who'd done this 100 times and never missed. I swallowed. "Who are you?" "Someone you don't look at too long," he said. At the top, the exit gate was down. I grabbed for the ticket, fingers clumsy. The SUV gained, headlights filling my rearview like a threat with teeth. "Don't stop," he said, and his hand came to my jaw, turning my face forward. The touch was intimate in the most infuriating way, as if my body belonged to his instructions. He leaned across me and smashed the emergency release box. Plastic shattered. The gate arm lifted with a mechanical whine. I shot into the street, rain slashing the windshield. Grey Haven's waterfront glowed in neon smears, the city pretending it didn't keep its secrets in the dark. Behind us, the SUV burst out and accelerated. "Left," he ordered at the next light. I turned because I didn't have a better plan and because his calm was contagious in the worst way. A second vehicle rolled from a side street, aiming to cut us off. The man lifted his gun. "Don't flinch," he said. A shot cracked. My back window exploded into a spiderweb of glass. I screamed, and the sound tasted like panic. The sedan swerved away, retreating into the rain. He hissed, breath catching. Fresh blood seeped between his fingers. For a heartbeat his face tightened, not with menace, but with pain he couldn't afford. The SUV drew close again. A man leaned out its window, rain whipping his words into a snarl. "Cashin Valles. You can't outrun the Black Crest." The name hit like ice. I'd heard it once, whispered by librarians who thought nobody listened. A syndicate symbol, a crest stamped on bribes and broken bones. Cashin turned his head slightly, eyes glacial. Then he looked at me. And I understood the first rule of monsters. They don't ask permission before they choose you. How do you know my name? I demanded, voice shaking harder than my hands. He didn't answer. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and something in him went still, cold, final. "They're at your apartment," he said. "Right now." My breath stalled. "What?" Cashin's hand covered mine on the steering wheel, guiding it into a sudden turn that almost threw me into the door. His touch anchored me and trapped me at the same time. "You can't go back, Talia," he said, as the black SUV's headlights filled the mirrors again. "So you're coming with me." Rain blurred the road, but my mind sharpened on one detail. He'd known my name before he'd ever touched me. I fought his hand on mine, but he tightened his grip, steering us off the main avenue into a service tunnel beneath the cannery district. Sodium lights strobed over his face. Beautiful, bruised, merciless. "Why my apartment?" Yes. "What did I do?" "You existed near me," he said. "They'll torch any place you can be found." Ahead, headlights appeared. Another SUV, flashing a coded blink. Cashin lifted his phone to his ear. "Report," he said. A voice crackled. "Boss, we got there late." Door was open. Someone left a message. My pulse slammed. "What message?" Cashin's gaze cut to me. "Your real name," he said. "Painted on your wall." In the rearview, the black Crest SUV entered the tunnel too, and the space between us shrank with each breath I took. Slowly. Rain roared through the tunnel like an animal trapped in concrete. Every sound doubled. Engines, distant shouts, my breath scraping my throat. Cashin's hand remained over mine on the steering wheel, guiding my car with infuriating certainty. I tried to jerk away. He tightened his grip, not painful, just final. "Your real name," I said. "How would they know it?" "They didn't," he answered. "Not until tonight." Static spilled from his phone. I caught fragments. Apartment, open door, message. Cashin listened with a stillness that felt practiced, then said one word that made the men on the other end go quiet. "Contain." He ended the call and pressed his palm to his ribs. Blood had soaked through his shirt, spreading in a dark bloom. He noticed my stare and gave a humorless exhale. "Eyes forward," he said. "They're still behind us." Cashin leaned across me, cracked the window, and fired twice behind us. The SUV's lights swerved, clipped the tunnel wall, and vanished in a shower of sparks. A sob tore out of me before I could swallow it. "You shot them." "I slowed them," he said. "They'll bring more." Ahead, another SUV flashed its lights. 1, 2, 3, like a signal. It took a hard right into a service ramp I'd never noticed, and I followed because Cashin's hand on mine made disobedience feel impossible. The ramp descended into a corridor of sealed loading docks and damp concrete. At the end stood a steel gate that shouldn't have opened for anyone. We rolled through into a cavernous parking bay lit by harsh fluorescence. Men waited in a loose line, earpieces, hands near their weapons. None of them looked shocked to see Cashin bleeding in my passenger seat. They looked relieved, like they'd been holding their breath. One stepped forward, shaved head, calm eyes. "Boss." The word hit me harder than the bullets. "Not, sir. Not Mr. Valles." Cashin Valles sat in my car like he owned it. "Medic," Cashin ordered. "Now." "And wipe her vehicle." "Her?" the shaved head man asked, gaze sliding to me as if measuring my weight. Cashin followed the look. For the first time since the garage, his eyes settled on my face instead of the road. "Talia stays with me." My throat burned. "I'm going home." A low chuckle came from somewhere in the line. It died instantly when Cashin turned his head. The silence that followed wasn't respect. It was fear. Cashin leaned closer until his shoulder brushed mine, warm through wet fabric. His voice dropped to something meant only for me. "Your home is compromised. If you go back, you die. If you run, they'll use you to reach me. Either way, you don't get to pretend this ends at your front door." Rage flared, bright and useless. "I didn't choose you." No, he said, and there was the smallest edge of regret. But someone chose you. My pulse stuttered. What did they write on my wall? He held my gaze as if he could pin me in place with it. The menace in him thinned, revealing something colder. Certainty. Natalia Serrano, he said. In red paint. The garage lights seemed to tilt. That name wasn't just a secret. It was a grave I'd dug with both hands. I tasted copper like memory had teeth. I gripped the wheel until my knuckles ached. You knew. I verified, he corrected. You investigated me. The words came out flat, betrayed. Yes. I wanted denial, an excuse, anything that didn't make my skin crawl. Why? He opened his mouth. And pain stole the answer. His breath hitched. His hand tightened on his side, fingers slick with blood. For a heartbeat the Iron Man disappeared, replaced by a wounded one. Instinct betrayed me. I reached toward him. Cashin caught my wrist midair. His grip was firm, but his thumb brushed my pulse, a touch so precise it felt intimate. Don't, he warned, voice rough. Not here. Side door opened. A woman strode in with a medical bag, dark hair clipped back, expression sharp as a scalpel. She didn't ask permission. She looked at Cashin and said, "Coat off." "I'm fine," he said. "You're leaking," she replied, already snapping on gloves. Two men moved to assist. Cashin's jaw flexed, irritation flashing, and then he nodded once, surrendering to necessity. His coat came open, then his shirt, and I saw the wound. A torn graze along his ribs, angry and swollen. The medic cleaned it fast, hand steady. Cashin didn't so much as flinch, but his eyes found mine again, holding me there as if my reaction mattered. A scar-faced man approached, stopping a careful distance away. "Boss, where do you want her?" Cashin didn't look at him. "Where I can see her." The answer wasn't protection. It was possession, and my stomach tightened around it. The scar-faced man's gaze flicked to my door. "Ma'am." Cashin's voice cut in, quiet but lethal. "Arden. Don't touch her." Arden froze, then stepped back. Cashin spoke to me again, softer, like he was offering choices that weren't choices. "You can sit in the car or you can come upstairs. But you stay in my line of sight." A cage with velvet still counted as a cage. I forced my legs to move, stepped out into the cold, and stood beside my ruined window, rain misting my face. Across the bay, a heavy door slid open, revealing an elevator, clean, carpeted, elegant against the concrete. As if violence downstairs required luxury above. Cashin's phone buzzed again. He glanced at the screen, and whatever humanity I'd glimpsed drained away. "They have her," he said. "Who?" My voice shook despite me. Cashin looked at me like the decision had already been made, and all that remained was whether I would scream. "The person you changed your name for," he said. "And they're trading her for you." The elevator carried us upward with a hush that felt obscene after gunfire. Cashin stood close enough that the heat of him warmed my wet sleeves, yet he didn't touch me. His men filled the corners, silent, eyes scanning even the mirrored walls as if danger could seep through polished steel. When the doors opened, a corridor of dark wood and soft lamps greeted us, expensive, calm, staged. A scent of wax and old whiskey clung to the air. I stepped out and my shoes sank into thick carpet. "This is a safe house." "Yes." "A nest," Cashin said, voice low. "Temporary." He walked with that controlled limp, refusing help. Arden trailed him like a shadow with opinions he kept behind his teeth. The medic had bandaged Cashin's ribs beneath a fresh shirt, but I could see the stiffness in his shoulders. He led us into a study lit by candles set inside hurricane glass. Rain tapped the tall windows. Beyond them, the harbor cranes moved like slow, skeletal giants. Cashin nodded once, and the men dispersed to the perimeter. Arden stayed by the door. I wrapped my arms around myself. "You said they have her." Cashin's gaze held mine. In this light, his eyes looked less silver and more like storm water over stone. Livia Serrano, he said. Hearing my sister's name spoken in his mouth made my stomach turn. Where is she? I don't know yet, he answered, and something in me snapped at the honesty. But they want you enough to take her. I took a step toward him. Why would they want me? I'm not. A lie tried to form, but he cut it off with a look. You're Natalia, he said, as if the name were both verdict and invitation. You vanished. They finally found the thread. My throat tightened. If you knew, why didn't you leave me alone? Cashin moved closer, slow, deliberate. He didn't crowd me, he made space feel irrelevant. Because someone on campus flagged your badge on a camera the night my shipment disappeared, he said. The report said you were in the building after hours. I work there, I shot back. Sometimes I stay late to finish. I know what you do, he interrupted, and the words made my skin prickle. Archival conservation. Acid-free boxes. Gloves. Solvents that smell like oranges. You drink coffee you don't like because it's cheap. My mouth went dry. You watched me. I verified my risk, he corrected again, colder this time. And then I realized you weren't the risk. Then what am I? For a beat he said nothing. Candlelight carved his face into sharp angles. I noticed a faint bruise along his jaw, yellowing at the edges, like someone had dared to strike him and lived long enough to regret it. Your leverage, he said finally. For them. And now for me. Anger surged. So you're keeping me because you need bait. Arden shifted by the door, but Cashin didn't look away from me. I'm keeping you because if they get you, they'll use you until there's nothing left to use. His voice didn't rise. That steadiness pressed into me harder than shouting. I hated that my fear wanted to trust it. Cashin turned and opened a drawer in the desk. He pulled out a thin folder and tossed it onto the leather blotter. My hands hesitated before I took it. Inside were photographs. Me leaving my building. Me at the archive desk. Me at a corner store, hood up against rain. In the last one, I was looking over my shoulder, as if I'd sensed the lens. You have a file on me, I whispered. Cashin's jaw tightened. I have files on everyone who can touch my world. And Livia. My voice cracked. Do you have a file on her too? A flicker, so fast I might have imagined it, passed over his face. Something like guilt. Not until tonight. I slammed the folder shut. Then help me get her back. Not with threats. With facts. Cashin reached for a crystal decanter, poured amber liquid into a glass, then set it down untouched. Facts, he repeated like the word tasted foreign. Black Crest doesn't snatch civilians unless it buys them something. They're sending a message. To you, I said. To you, he corrected. They didn't paint my name on your wall. They painted yours. My knees went weak. I gripped the back of a chair, refusing to sit. What do they think I have? Cashin's attention sharpened, predatory not with hunger but with calculation. Tell me, he said softly. What did your father leave you? The room narrowed. I hadn't heard that question in years. My father is dead. Cashin stepped closer until the table edge pressed into my thigh. Answer. The command scraped over my nerves. I met his eyes anyway. He left me a book, I said, and my voice sounded smaller than I wanted. An old ledger. I don't even know if it's real. It's locked in the archive vault because the donor paperwork was complicated. Cashin's breath paused. His hand lifted, stopping short of my cheek, as if he was deciding whether touching me would be comfort or claim. That's why they want you, he murmured. Phone buzzed on the desk. Arden checked it, went still, and looked at Cashin like bad news had teeth. Boss, Arden said. It's a video. Cashin took the phone, thumb hovering. Then he turned the screen toward me. Livia filled the frame, taped to a chair, cheeks streaked with tears. A man's gloved hand brushed her hair back, gentle in a way that made my blood run cold. My vision blurred, but Cashin's hand steadied my shaking. A voice spoke from off-camera, amused. Midnight, Valles. Bring Natalia Serrano and the ledger, Or we mail you what's left of her. I couldn't unsee Livia's face on that phone screen, the way her mouth trembled like she was trying to be brave for someone she couldn't even see. My sister had always been the brave one. I'd been the runner. Cashin didn't let me fall apart for long. He took the phone from my numb fingers and set it face down on the desk like he could smother the threat with leather and candlelight. Then he looked at Arden. "Midnight is a trap," he said. Arden's gaze slid to me, then away. "We can still spring it." Cashin's voice stayed low, but the room bent around it. "We can't bring them the ledger." My throat scraped. "Then how do we get her back?" Cashin turned to me. "We take away what they think they're buying." "What they think I have," I whispered. He nodded once. "The ledger." I hugged myself harder, as if my arms could hold in my panic. "It's in the university vault. You can't just." "I can," he cut in, and there was the Mafia boss, the man who treated locked doors like suggestions. Then his gaze softened by a fraction, like he remembered I wasn't built from steel. "But I don't want to do it loud." My stomach rolled. "You want me to go back?" "I want you to tell me exactly how to get in and out," he said. "And I want you close enough that no one else touches you." Possession wrapped in protection. I hated that it warmed something in my chest anyway. Arden cleared his throat. "Campus is a risk. Too many cameras." Cashin didn't blink. "So we own the cameras for an hour." The casual way he said it, like buying a piece of the world was as simple as opening a wallet, made my skin prickle. I stared at him. "You can do that." "I can do worse," he said. And then, as if he regretted the edge in his own voice, he added, "I can also keep you here and let your sister die." That was the blade under the velvet. Forced me upright. "Tell me what you need," I said. Cashin's gaze held mine, heavy and assessing. "Your access badge," he said. "Your vault code. And the name of the only person besides you who can open it." My mouth went dry. "There isn't." He waited. Silence filled the study, thick as smoke. I exhaled shakily. "Dr. Hollis Vane. Collections Director." Arden's eyebrows rose. "That's convenient." Cashin's eyes narrowed slightly. "Convenient usually means planted." I swallowed. "He hired me." He's just a professor type." Cashin leaned in, close enough that I caught the faint scent of antiseptic under his cologne. "Natalia," he said, using the name like a key in a lock. "In my world, professor type can still put a bullet in your head." The way he said it wasn't a threat. It was a promise of reality. Within minutes, the safe house shifted into motion. Men filtered through halls with earpieces and clipped words. Someone brought me a dry coat that wasn't mine. Soft wool, expensive, smelling faintly of cedar. Cashin watched me put it on as if he was marking me with it. When I hesitated at the door, he stepped behind me and fastened the top button himself. His fingers brushed my throat for half a second, warm, careful, and my pulse betrayed me, jumping under his touch. His voice dropped. "Stay at my side." I turned my head. "And if I don't?" His mouth curved, not quite a smile. "Then I carry you." I should have been insulted. I should have been furious. Instead, heat curled low in my stomach, tangled with fear until I couldn't separate them. We rode in a black SUV with tinted windows so dark the city became a dim watercolor. Cashin sat beside me, one arm stretched along the backrest behind my shoulders, not touching but boxing me in with the shape of his body. Arden rode up front, speaking into his mic. 2 units ahead. 1 trailing. Camera loop is active in 3 minutes, Arden said. Cashin's gaze stayed on the windshield. No sirens. No spectacle. Arden hesitated. If Black Crest anticipates. Cashin's voice sharpened. They anticipate midnight. We're giving them 10 p.m. My hands twisted together. What if the ledger isn't there? Cashin finally looked at me. Then someone already stole it, he said. And we'll find out who. The university rose out of the rain like a sleeping beast. Stone arches, dark windows, the campus lamps glowing weakly under wet trees. My chest tightened with the absurdity of it. Yesterday these paths had meant work, deadlines, coffee, quiet. Tonight they were a corridor toward blood. Arden's team moved first, silent shadows in dark rain gear. They didn't rush. They didn't chatter. They flowed. Cashin stepped out and came around to my side of the SUV, offering a hand like a gentleman from a different century. I didn't take it at first. His eyes flicked to my trembling fingers. "Talia," he murmured, gentle enough it hurt. "You don't have to like me. You just have to stay alive." I took his hand. His grip closed, firm and warm. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to that. His palm around mine, rain tapping my hair, and the awareness that I just crossed a line I might not find my way back from. Inside, the archive smelled like paper and dust and lemon cleaner. Emergency lights cast long shadows down the corridor. Arden's camera loop must have killed the normal security feed. The building felt blind. I led Cashin through the stacks, my shoes too loud on the tile. His men stayed back, spaced out, watching every intersection. "Vault is downstairs," I whispered. Cashin's head tilted slightly, listening. "I know. You know." I frowned. "How?" He didn't answer. He just guided me forward with a light touch at my elbow, so careful it felt almost respectful. Almost. At the basement level, the air turned colder. The vault door waited at the end of the corridor, steel and keypad and a sensor panel. The world's most boring fortress. My badge shook in my hand as I swiped it. Green light. Exhaled. Then I saw the smear on the floor in front of the vault. Dark, half-dried, dragged. Blood. Cashin's hand closed around my wrist instantly, pulling me back. The gentleness vanished. "Stop," he said. From the shadows near the maintenance closet, a body lay crumpled in a security uniform. I recognized the shoes. I'd seen them in the hallway 100 times. My voice came out thin. "That's Eli. He works nights." Cashin's eyes went flat. Arden appeared behind us, gun drawn, scanning. "This wasn't random," Arden muttered. Cashin leaned toward my ear. "Code," he said. "Now." My fingers fumbled over the keypad. I punched the numbers, forced my shaking hands to keep moving. The vault clicked. The door began to swing inward. And then a voice behind us spoke with lazy amusement. "Too close, too calm." "Good girl," it said. "Open it for me." A gun pressed against the back of my skull as Cashin turned, slow and lethal. The man in the shadows stepped into the emergency light. Campus ID lanyard, rain-specked glasses, familiar academic tweed. Dr. Hollis Vane smiled at me. "Hello, Natalia," he said. "Your sister sends her love." The gun at my skull was cold. I froze with my palm still on the vault handle, the steel door half open, its dark mouth waiting. Dr. Hollis Vane adjusted his glasses with a hand that didn't shake. "Step inside, Natalia," he said, mild as a lecture. "Take the ledger. Bring it out." Cashin turned a fraction, sliding himself between me and Vane. His eyes cut to the shadow at my back. "Who hired you, Professor?" The barrel pressed harder. My knees threatened to fold. Vane smiled wider. "Black Crest doesn't hire. They invite." His gaze slid over Cashin's face with ugly familiarity. "And they invited me to watch you bleed, Valles." Behind me, a man in coveralls held the gun steady. Cashin's voice dropped into something frighteningly calm. "If you pull that trigger, you die in this hallway." "Oh, I know," Vane said pleasantly. "That's why my colleague will do it." Cashin took a slow breath. "Talia, when I say down, you go down." He moved before I could answer. The world snapped into pieces. His shoulder slammed into mine, driving me sideways. His arm hooked my waist and yanked me down. A shot cracked overhead. I hit the tile hard, cheek against the cold floor, the smell of dust and copper flooding my senses. Cashin's pistol barked once, sharp, final. The pressure at the back of my head vanished. A body thudded behind me. Arden surged in from the stairwell with two men, guns up. "Clear!" someone shouted. Vane stumbled backward, shock finally breaking his professor mask. Cashin straightened with a wince, one hand briefly touching his bandaged ribs. Then he leveled his gun at Vane's chest. "Don't," I rasped, pushing myself up on trembling elbows. "We need him. For Livia." Cashin didn't look at me, but his jaw flexed as if he'd heard. "Zip-tie him," he ordered Arden. "And gag him if he speaks." Vane's eyes flicked to me, furious now. "Your sister is all ready." Arden slammed him into the wall. "Quiet." Cashin crouched beside me. His hand, warm, inked with someone else's blood, cupped the back of my neck. "Are you hit?" I swallowed, shaking. "No." His thumb brushed the skin under my ear, a touch that steadied me and unsettled me at once. "Good," he said, and the relief in the word was real enough to hurt. He helped me stand, keeping his body close like a shield. Together we faced the vault. "Get it," Vane spat through clenched teeth. "You're too late anyway." Cashin pushed the door open fully. The vault lights flickered on, revealing boxes and cabinets. And the shelf where the Serrano donation should have been was empty. A paper envelope sat in its place, centered like an insult. Arden jerked Vane closer. "Where is it?" Vane's laugh turned into a cough. "Gone." Cashin picked up the envelope without opening it. On the front was a stamped crest, black ink in the shape of a thorned crown. My stomach dropped. They were here before us. Cashin's eyes stayed on the seal. They knew exactly where to look. I turned to Vane. "You gave it to them." "I made a choice," he sneered. "The university pays in grants. Black Crest pays in absolution." Cashin's gaze lifted, flat as winter. "Absolution doesn't exist," he said. Then to Arden. "Take him." Vane's eyes widened. "You can't, there are rules." Cashin leaned in close enough that only Vane could hear. I didn't catch the words, but I saw the effect. Vane went pale, his mouth working soundlessly. Arden dragged him away. Sirens began to wail in the distance. Faint, approaching. Arden's man by the corridor muttered. "Alarm tripped. We've got maybe 2 minutes." Cashin grabbed my hand and pulled me toward the stairs. His grip was iron, his palm was hot. We moved fast through the dark halls, through the door that led to the loading entrance where his SUV waited with the engine running. The moment I climbed in, my body understood what had happened. My hand started to shake so violently my teeth clicked. Cashin slid in beside me and shut the door. The tinted world returned. Rain, streetlights, blurred campus stone. He reached across and pulled my seatbelt over me with rough gentleness, his fingers lingering a fraction too long at my waist. "You saved me," I whispered. "I followed procedure," he said automatically, then exhaled like the lie disgusted him. "Yes." The SUV accelerated. Behind us, blue lights flashed at the campus gates. Cashin broke the envelope seal. Inside was a single flash drive and a folded note. He read it once, then again, his face turning unreadable. "Tell me," I demanded. He handed me the note. "Midnight is generous. 11 o'clock is mercy. Come alone, Valles. Bring Natalia, we already have the ledger." My throat closed. "They want me there." Cashin's gaze fixed on mine, heavy and dark. "They want you delivered," he said. "And they want me on my knees." I swallowed hard. "What do we do?" He leaned closer, his voice a low vow against my ear. "We lie," he said. "And then we burn their mercy to the ground." My chest ached. "And if they make me choose?" Yes. Cashin's fingers slid over my knuckles, possessive and gentle. "Then I'll choose for you," he said. "I'll bring Livia home." As if summoned by his words, Arden's voice crackled through the SUV speaker. Tight, urgent. "Boss," he said, "we have a problem. Black Crest just posted another video." Cashin's eyes didn't leave mine. "Play it." The screen in the console lit up, and Livia's face appeared again. Only this time she wasn't taped to a chair. She was standing beside a window, free, smiling faintly, with a gun in her hand, pressed to her own temple. "Natty," she whispered, eyes glassy. "He says I have to do it if you don't come." The video ended, but Livia's whisper stayed in the SUV like smoke. My fingernails dug into my palms until pain was the thing I could control. Cashin didn't swear or slam a fist. He paused on Livia's face and studied the reflection in the window behind her. "That's not a hostage setup," he said. "That's staging." "She's holding the gun to herself," I choked out. "How is that staging?" He looked at me then, and the softness I kept catching in him vanished behind calculation. "Because her wrists are clean. No tape marks. No bruising. And the angle of the light says she's near water." My stomach twisted. "So she's cooperating. Or being coached." Cashin's voice dropped. "Either way, Black Crest wants you desperate. Desperate people walk into traps without looking for the wires." The SUV turned off the road into a garage that smelled of disinfectant, not gasoline. A private clinic. No signs, no reception, just a steel door and a man with a biometric scanner. Cashin's hand found my elbow as we walked. His touch wasn't tender. It was anchoring, like he didn't trust the ground to keep me from running. Inside, the holes were white and silent. A nurse in plain clothes led Cashin into an exam room. She looked at me unsure. Cashin hooked 2 fingers through my belt loop and pulled me in after him. Heat flashed across my skin at the possessive gesture. Hated it. I wanted it. Both truths tasted like sin. The nurse cut his shirt away with scissors. When Cashin's chest was bare, the bandage at his ribs had already bled through. He sat on the edge of the bed, shoulders rigid, eyes fixed on some point past the wall. "Hold this," the nurse told me, shoving gauze into my hands. I stared at her. "I'm not." Cashin's gaze flicked to mine. "You are," he said. "If you want to keep your mind busy, keep my blood inside me." The nurse cleaned the wound. I pressed gauze where she pointed, feeling his heat through the cloth. Cashin didn't move, but his breath slowed, like pain was a wave he rode. When the nurse stepped out to fetch antibiotics, the silence became intimate. Cashin's hand covered mine over the gauze, steadying it. His fingers were calloused, warm, human. "Why are you really doing this?" I asked. "Because you feel responsible. Or because I'm useful." He didn't answer at first. Then his thumb shifted, brushing the side of my hand. "Both," he said. "And because I know what it's like to have someone you love used as a message." I swallowed. "Who?" For a second the boss mask slipped. "My mother," he said. "Black Crest took her when I was 19. They wanted my father's territory." He folded. "She died anyway." Something in my chest cracked open. I hated him for what he was, but I understood the shape of his rage. His eyes held mine, too close, too sharp. "Don't confuse my mercy with weakness," he murmured. "I can be gentle with you and still be a monster to everyone else." My pulse thudded under his hand. "I don't want a monster," I whispered, and the confession felt like stepping onto a ledge. Cashin leaned in, stopping just short of my mouth, giving me the last inch of choice. "Then tell me to stop," he said. I should have. Instead I lifted my chin. His lips met mine, brief, controlled, more vow than kiss. Then he pulled back as if restraint hurt worse than the wound. The door opened. Arden walked in, rein on his shoulders, a tablet in his hand. His eyes flicked to my flushed face, to Cashin's bare chest, and he said nothing, just handed the tablet over. Cashin read, and the air changed. Vane talked. Yes. "Not yet," Arden said. "But he will. Your way or ours." Cashin's gaze stayed on the screen. "Where?" he asked. Arden's voice was clipped. "Old Chapel at Pier 9. Black Crest moved Livia there 30 minutes ago. They're setting up for the exchange." Hope surged, savage and painful. I grabbed Cashin's arm. "We go now." Cashin's eyes rose to mine, and the tenderness was gone again, replaced by command. "No," he said. "We prepare." I stepped back, shaking. "You said you'd bring her home." He stood, towering despite the bandage. "And I will," he said. "But not by walking into a chapel where they control the exits." Arden shifted his weight. "Boss, we can pull Vane apart until he gives us the ledger's location too." My stomach lurched. "No," I said. "You can't torture him." Cashin's gaze pinned me. "I can," he corrected softly. "And if pain buys your sister's breathing, I won't hesitate." The nurse returned, startled by the tension. Cashin took the antibiotic injection without flinching, then shrugged into a clean shirt. He walked to the door, stopping beside me. His knuckles brushed my cheek. An apology he couldn't say aloud. "Stay in this room," he murmured. Then he left with Arden, their footsteps swallowed by the sterile corridor. I stood there, shaking, listening to distant doors open and close. Somewhere deeper in the clinic, a man screamed. One raw sound, then another, cut short like someone had turned down the volume. My throat tightened until I could barely breathe. I told myself it was necessary. I told myself Livia mattered more than my morals. The lies didn't settle. The console on the wall chimed. A message blinked on the clinic's secure line, addressed to me by name. "Unknown number. You're not the only Serrano he's saving. Ask Valles about the girl in Rome." My blood turned to ice. Before I could move, the door swung open. Cashin stood there with crimson on his cuffs and a look that said he'd crossed a line and wouldn't step back. Cashin filled the doorway, broad shoulders, blood on his cuffs. Behind him, Arden's face was blank, the kind men wore after violence. "What did he say?" I asked, meaning Dr. Vane, but my gaze slid to the crimson. Cashin shut the door with his heel. "Enough," he replied. His voice was steady. His eyes weren't. They tracked my face as if checking for cracks. I should have pressed him about Livia. Instead, the message on the clinic console burned through my mind. "Ask Valles about the girl in Rome." I lifted my chin. "Before we go anywhere, you tell me who she is." Beat of silence. Arden shifted, uncomfortable. Cashin's jaw tightened so hard I heard his teeth click. "Not now." "Now," I insisted, surprising myself with the steel in my own voice. "You keep saying I don't get choices, but you're asking me to walk into a chapel for you. I need to know what you do to women who get caught in your world." Cashin crossed the room in 2 strides and stopped close enough that my breath hit his throat. His hands hovered at my waist, not touching, as if he didn't trust himself. "I don't hurt women," he said softly. I gave a bitter laugh. "You hurt men instead and call it honor." His eyes flashed. For a moment I saw the boss in full, cold command, no mercy. Then it faded, leaving something raw. "Rome was a witness," he said. "A girl who saw a murder she wasn't meant to. Black Crest wanted her dead. I moved her. I failed." The confession landed heavy. "She died." Cashin didn't answer, and the lack of it was its own yes. My throat tightened. "And you think you won't fail Livia?" "I won't," he said, the vow sharp enough to cut. He turned to Arden. "Bring the cars. Full perimeter." Arden nodded and left. The door clicked shut behind him, and the clinic felt suddenly too small for the violence gathering inside it. Cashin opened a wall cabinet I hadn't noticed. Inside were weapons laid out with clinical neatness. He chose a compact pistol, checked the magazine, then set it on the counter within my reach. I stared. "You want me armed." "I want you alive," he corrected. "If I say run, you run. If I say shoot, you shoot. I've never fired. You will tonight." His gaze softened a fraction. "And you'll hate me for it." The motorcade rolled out 10 minutes later. 3 black SUVs, a lead car, 2 bikes, and a van with no windows. I sat in the middle vehicle beside Cashin while Grey Haven blurred past in streaks of wet light. His phone kept buzzing. He answered in short commands, naming streets and rooftops and tides. Pier 9 meant water. A chapel built for fishermen, abandoned when the cannery closed. I'd passed it 100 times without looking. Now it was a landmark on a map of fear. Cashin pressed a finger to his earpiece. "Eyes on the chapel?" he asked. A voice replied, "2 sentries north door. 1 on the bell tower. No sight of the hostage." Cashin's hand covered mine, not gentle, grounding. "They'll move her at the last minute." I swallowed. "And if she's all ready?" "Don't," he cut in. The word held more emotion than anything he'd said since the vault. "Not until I see her." We turned onto the pier road. Salt and diesel stung the air. The chapel rose ahead, dark stone against darker sky, its bell tower like a finger accusing God. Cashin's convoy didn't rush it. They flowed around it. SUVs took positions at intersections. Men spilled out, melting into cover with night vision goggles and suppressed rifles. From the van, a drone lifted, silent, insect small, disappearing above the roofline. I watched stunned. "How many?" 200 within 5 minutes, Cashin said. "Another 100 on standby." My mouth went dry. I'd thought power was money and guns. This was infrastructure. This was a private army moving like a single organism. Cashin opened my door and offered his hand again. I took it because my legs had stopped trusting me. He guided me toward the chapel steps, a protective hand at my back. His men gave us space, but their eyes were everywhere. At the doors, Cashin paused and spoke into his mic. "No shots unless I order," he said. "If they touch her, I want them breathing long enough to regret it." The doors creaked open. Inside, candles burned in rows along the pews, their flames steady despite the draft. The air smelled of wax and old seawater. At the altar stood a man in a long coat, hands clasped as if praying. Raphael d'Aquila. I recognized him from the news footage they never aired twice. An arrest photo that vanished, a face too elegant for a cell. He smiled. "Cashin Valles," he greeted, voice smooth. His eyes slid to me. "And Natalia Serrano." At last. Cashin stepped in front of me. "Where is Livia?" Raphael gestured toward the side door. "Bring her." The door opened. Livia walked in, unharmed, hair brushed, eyes empty. A man followed with a hand at the small of her back, guiding her like a doll. When Livia saw me, her lips parted. "Natty," she whispered. Relief punched through me so hard I almost sobbed. I took 1 step. Click echoed. Livia lifted her hand. Not empty. Pistol. Pointed at Cashin's chest. Her eyes met mine, flooded with tears, and her voice broke. "He said if I don't, he'll kill you." Cashin didn't move. He didn't even blink. He looked at me over his shoulder, and in that instant I understood the trap wasn't for him. It was for me. "Choose," Raphael said softly. "Shoot Valles or watch your sister die." Livia's finger tightened. The gunshot cracked through the chapel and split the air clean in 2. For a heartbeat, I didn't understand what I was seeing, only that Livia's arm recoiled, her face folding with horror, and Cashin's body jerked as if the sound had yanked him backward by a string. Blood bloomed dark against his white shirt. My scream didn't feel like it came from me. It ripped out of my chest like something feral and ancient. "Cashin!" He didn't fall. He staggered 1 step, then caught himself on the edge of a pew, teeth bared as if he'd bitten down on the pain instead of letting it own him. His eyes snapped to me first, fast, searching, like he needed proof I was still standing. Then he looked at Livia. She stared at the gun in her own hand as if she'd never seen it before. Her lips shook. I didn't." Cashin moved toward her, slow and deliberate, 1 hand rising, empty, to show he wasn't going to hurt her. His voice was low, roughened by pain. "Livia," he said. "Drop it." She did. The pistol clattered onto the stone aisle. Cashin exhaled through his teeth and bent, scooping it up before anyone else could. His other hand pressed over the wound at his chest, but when his palm came away, the blood looked wrong. Too thin. Too spread. Vest. He'd known. The realization hit like a slap. He'd walked into this expecting the bullet. Raphael d'Aquilia's applause filled the chapel, soft mocking claps that echoed off damp stone. "Beautiful," Raphael purred from the altar. "A sister's hand." Poetic, really. Cashin turned his head slightly, eyes glacial. If you wanted theater, you should have stayed on your side of the ocean. Raphael smiled as if he'd been complimented. And missed tonight. Never. My legs wanted to carry me to Livia, to Cashin, to anyone. But Cashin lifted a hand, palm out, the smallest command. Behind us, the pew shadows shifted. Cashin's men were there. Hidden at the edges, weapons trained, waiting for permission to turn this chapel into a slaughterhouse. I could feel the tension in the air, stretched tight enough to sing. Raphael's gaze slid to me. "Natalia Serrano," he said, almost fond. "Come here." Cashin stepped in front of me. "No." Raphael sighed, as if Cashin had disappointed him. Then he lifted his hand and showed us something small and black nestled in his palm. Detonator. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like falling. Raphael tilted his head. "Do you know what I love about abandoned buildings?" he said conversationally. "No inspectors. No curious little cameras. Plenty of places to hide surprises." Cashin's shoulders went rigid. "You wired the chapel." "Not the whole chapel," Raphael corrected, voice gentle. "Just the exits." My mouth went numb. I looked toward the big doors we'd come through and imagined them collapsing inward. Stone, fire, splinters, trapping us with him inside. Raphael's eyes glinted. "You kill me, Valles, and everyone in this room burns. Including your new obsession." Cashin didn't move. But I felt it, the way his presence changed when his control was threatened. Not panic. Not fear. Calculation. He leaned slightly toward me, his voice barely a thread. "Do exactly what I say," he murmured, the words brushing my ear like a blade. "No matter what you feel." I shook my head, throat tight. "Cashin, you're bleeding." "Not enough," he said, and it sounded like a promise he planned to keep. Raphael took one slow step down from the altar. "We already have the ledger," he said. "But you know what we don't have." He held up a flash drive identical to the one from the vault, pinched between two fingers. "Understanding," he finished. "Your father didn't write it for idiots. He wrote it in layers. He wrote it for you." Cold crawled up my spine. "My father was an accountant," Raphael said, like he was revealing a punchline. "A careful man. A man who kept copies. A man who hid names in codes and thought he could disappear by giving you a new life." Cashin's jaw clenched. His eyes flicked to me, not accusing, not surprised. Just grim, like he'd suspected this direction. And now the road was confirming it. Raphael's smile widened. "So here is the exchange. Natalia comes with me. Valles leaves with his sister intact. Nobody dies tonight unless someone gets brave." Livia made a broken sound behind Cashin, half sob, half plea. "Natty, don't, please." I stepped around Cashin's shoulder to see her. Her eyes were red, haunted. She shook her head at me like she could shake the choice away. Cashin reached back without looking and caught my wrist. The contact was possessive, yes, but it was also desperate. His fingers tightened as if he could keep me tethered by sheer will. "No," he said quietly, directly at Raphael. "Take me instead." Raphael laughed. "You think you're the prize. You're a problem I enjoy. Natalia is the lock. The ledger is the door." Cashin's thumb dragged once over the inside of my wrist, right over my pulse, and his voice dropped so only I could hear. "When I nod," he murmured, "you go with him." My breath caught. "Absolutely not." Cashin's eyes finally met mine fully. The chapel, the candles, the guns. All of it fell away for one brutal second, leaving only him and me and the truth we'd been circling since the parking garage. "I can't clear this building without triggering his hand," he said, voice rough. "I can't get Livia out if you fight me on this. I'm not a pawn." "You're not," he cut in, and the intensity of it shook me. "You're the only piece on this board that matters to both sides. That's why you're in danger." His grip tightened, then softened, like he was forcing himself not to hurt me with the urgency. "Let them take you," he said. "I'll follow. Arden will track." I will bring you back. My chest burned. You said that about Rome. The words were out before I could stop them. The moment they landed, something in Cashin's face tightened. Painful, private. He didn't deny it. He just leaned closer, so close I felt his breath. Don't make me lose you too, he whispered. My heart stuttered at that single word. It wasn't just protection. It wasn't just strategy. It was attachment. And it terrified me more than Raphael's detonator. Raphael's patience thinned. Enough romance, he called. Natalia. Now. Cashin's eyes didn't leave mine. His voice went even lower. If you refuse, he said. He kills Livia tonight. And then he keeps coming until you're gone. My throat closed. I looked past Cashin at my sister. Shaking, silent, alive. Then I looked back at Cashin. Bleeding, furious, trying to hold the world together with his bare hands. I made my choice. I lifted my chin, forcing my legs to move. Cashin's fingers tightened reflexively around my wrist. Don't, he breathed. I'm not leaving you, I whispered back, voice breaking. I'm buying time. His eyes flashed, anger, pride, fear, all tangled. For one heartbeat. His hand rose to my cheek, and his touch was so gentle it nearly destroyed me. Then he nodded. I stepped out from behind him and walked down the aisle toward Raphael. My knees threatened to buckle with every step, but I kept my spine straight because fear didn't get to make me small. Raphael's smile returned, pleased. A man in a dark coat moved behind me and snapped a cold cuff around my wrist. Cashin's voice lashed out across the chapel. Touch her again and I'll feed you your own fingers. Raphael only chuckled. Control your temper, Valles. It makes you predictable. As they pulled me toward the side door, Cashin surged forward one step. Just one, and I felt the air react like a storm gathering around him. I twisted back, catching his gaze. His expression was carved from stone, but his eyes, those stormwater eyes, were burning. I will come, he said, not loud, not for show. A vow meant only for me. Raphael's men dragged me through the side corridor, out into the night where the pier wind slapped my wet face. A black van waited with its doors open like a mouth. I fought instinctively, just enough to earn a hard shove. As I stumbled into the van, I heard Cashin's voice behind me. One sharp command finally released. Now! Gunfire erupted. The chapel doors blew outward in a roar of splintered wood and flame, the shockwave punching the air so hard it stole my breath. The van rocked. Someone yelled. Hands slammed the doors shut. In the last sliver before darkness swallowed me, I saw Cashin Valles in the firelight, moving forward through smoke like something unstoppable. Then the van surged ahead, and the pier lights smeared into streaks as we sped into the night. Away from my sister, away from safety, away from the last piece of my old life. The van smelled like salt, gasoline, and scorched wood, like the chapel had climbed inside with me and refused to die. A plastic cuff bit into my wrist, tethered to a metal ring in the floor. Every bump in the pier road jolted my shoulder. The man across from me kept his gun pointed down, but his eyes stayed on my face like he was waiting for me to beg. I didn't. Not because I was brave. Because somewhere behind us, Cashin had said now. And I didn't know if that meant rescue or retaliation. The driver took turns too sharply, like he wanted to throw me off balance. Streetlight bled in through the seams of the doors, strobing over the faces of my captors. One of them wore a fisherman's knit cap. The other had a small black crest tattoo behind his ear, a thorned crown. I forced air into my lungs and held it. Like the panic was an animal I could starve. We stopped. Doors yanked open. Cold air rushed in, briny and wet. Move, the man with the knit cap said, grabbing my upper arm. I stumbled out onto planks slick with rain. A boathouse squatted at the end of the dock, its windows blacked out. Beyond it, harbor water slapped the pylons in restless, hungry rhythms. Inside, the air was warmer, heated, staged. Work lights hung from beams. Tarps covered the floor. And there, near a table laid out like an operating station, Raphael d'Aquila waited as if he'd had all night. "Welcome," he said mildly. "I prefer not to drag women. It lacks elegance." My jaw clenched. "Where's my sister?" Raphael's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Alive. Now. That depends on your cooperation." My stomach turned, but I kept my voice steady. "You already have the ledger. What do you need from me?" Raphael lifted the flash drive between two fingers. "Your father was cautious," he said. "He didn't just keep names. He hid them inside a cipher. I have men who break bones, not codes." "I'm an archivist," I snapped. "Not a cryptographer." "You're Natalia Serrano," he corrected, stepping closer. "He made you memorize things. Children remember songs, numbers, patterns." Something sharp moved in my chest. A memory I hadn't touched in years. My father's voice at the kitchen table, tapping a spoon against a cup while he murmured strings of digits like lullabies. I thought it was a game. I thought it was harmless. Raphael watched my face like he could read the answer off my skin. "There it is," he murmured. "Recognition." I swallowed hard. "If I help you, you let Livia go." Raphael tilted his head. "If you help me, I don't hurt her more." The honesty was worse than a lie. Hands pushed me toward a chair. Zip ties cinched my wrists to the arms. My pulse thundered in my ears, loud enough I barely heard the door open behind Raphael. Someone entered and froze my blood. Livia. She walked in slowly, eyes rimmed red, shoulders wrapped in a blanket like she'd been pulled out of cold water. When she saw me, her face crumpled, guilt, fear, love, all tangled together. A guard stayed close, fingers resting lightly on her shoulder. "I'm sorry," she whispered. He said you'd both die if I didn't do what he told me." "It's okay," I lied because I couldn't afford to let her break. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head once, quickly. Then her gaze flicked past me, toward Raphael, and I saw it. The way she flinched when he shifted his weight. The way her hands trembled inside the blanket. Fear had rewritten her. Raphael clapped once. "Enough family reunion," he said. "Natalia." The code. A laptop sat on the table. The flash drive lay beside it, waiting like a tooth. I stared at it, mind racing. If I gave him what he wanted, Cashin lost leverage, and Black Crest's reach would triple overnight. Politicians, ports, judges, everyone bought and catalogued. If I refused, Raphael would use Livia's body as punctuation. I turned my head slightly, searching the rafters, the corners. Anything Cashin might use if he came. Cameras. Wires. Men. Then I noticed something small and wrong. A second set of footprints in the damp tarp near the side exit. Different tread. Military. Someone had already been here. Recently. Raphael followed my gaze and smiled, almost pleased. "You're waiting for him," he said. "Cashin Valles. The loyal, wounded king." My throat tightened. "He's coming." "I know." Raphael leaned closer, voice soft. "That's why you're here. I'm not just buying a code, Natalia. I'm taking away his only weakness." My skin prickled. "Weakness? Me?" Raphael straightened and nodded to a guard. The guard lifted Livia's chin, exposing her throat in a gesture so casual it made bile rise in my mouth. Raphael's voice became velvet. "Tell me what your father taught you." Closed my eyes. Numbers surfaced like corpses in water. Not random, grouped. Repeated in threes. I heard my father's spoon tapping the cup. 741. 741. Don't forget, Natty. Keeps us safe. I opened my eyes, meeting Raphael's gaze. "Untie one hand," I said. "I'll write it. If I speak it, I'll make a mistake." Raphael considered, then nodded. "One hand," he agreed. "If you lie, your sister pays." A guard cut one zip tie. My right hand came free, tingling with pins and needles. They slid a notepad toward me and a pen. I didn't write the full sequence. I wrote enough to make Raphael think he'd won. And in the margin, in tiny strokes hidden under the curl of a number, I wrote 2 words my father had once drilled into me as a joke, in case I ever needed to warn someone who was listening. Pier 9. Oathouse. Stupid hope. A desperate one. Raphael leaned over my shoulder, breath warm. Good, he murmured. Very good. A distant thud shivered through the building. Not waves. Not wind. A second later, the harbor night exploded. Gunfire suppressed, controlled, close. A crash of splintering wood. Raphael's head snapped toward the side door. For the first time his composure cracked. Cashin had found us. The side exit burst inward, and Cashin Valles stepped through smoke and rain like the storm had decided to wear a man's body. His suit was dark, his hair wet, his eyes lethal. Men moved behind him in perfect formation, rifles up, angles covered. My heart lurched so hard it hurt. Cashin's gaze landed on me, then Livia, then Raphael. The air around him went cold. Let them go, he said. Raphael smiled again, but it looked strained now. Or what? Cashin lifted his gun. Or I end your story here. For a split second I believed he would. Not for power. Not for pride. Was. Then a figure stepped out from behind Cashin's line. Gun raised, aimed not at Raphael's men, but at Cashin's spine. Arden.